Welcome back to Mint Mysteries, the place where small pieces of history can turn into jaw-dropping treasures. Today, we're diving deep into the world of ultra-rare British one-penny coins from the reign of King George VI, coins that might just be sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or even in your pocket change, and yet could be worth an absolute fortune. Some of these little copper beauties, in the right condition, are so rare and so desired by collectors that their values have skyrocketed into shocking six-figure and even seven-figure territory. Imagine holding a penny that could pay off your house, your car, and still leave you with life-changing wealth. It sounds unbelievable, but trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end, because the final coin on this list is nothing short of breathtaking. The first coin on our list takes us back to 1938, a year of tension on the edge of World War II, and right in the middle of King George VI's reign. In that year, the Royal Mint struck a limited number of bronze one-penny coins, featuring the unmistakable portrait of the king on the obverse and the proud figure of Britannia seated with trident and shield on the reverse, a design that had symbolized strength and empire for more than a century. Now, to most people, this is just another old penny, may worth a few dollars at best. But here's where the story takes a jaw-dropping turn. When we're talking about the 1938 one-penny, condition is everything. In fine condition, like the example we're looking at today, you can still see the king's portrait with clear definition, though some of the finer hair details may be worn. Britannia still stands bold, with most of the trident and shield visible, but there's noticeable smoothing across the high points. To an experienced collector, even this average fine-grade example can bring in a surprising $120 to $250 at auction, depending on eye appeal. Not bad for something that could easily be mistaken for pocket change. But hold on, because the real shock comes when you move up in grade dot in extremely fine or almost uncirculated condition, where the coin has only the faintest touches of wear and much of its original luster. Prices leap dramatically. Collectors will fight tooth and nail to secure an example, and bidding wars can easily drive values well into the $15,000 to $25,000 range. That's the price of a brand new car for a single penny. And yet, it doesn't stop there. The true gems are the rare uncirculated specimens, especially those that still retain their brilliant red-brown or even full red mint luster. Imagine a 1938 penny that looks almost as fresh as the day it was struck. These are almost mythical, but when they surface, the hammer prices have shocked even the most seasoned experts. We're talking $350,000, sometimes pushing close to $500,000 for a flawless example. Yes, a single copper penny fetching more than the average American home. It sounds unreal, but collectors know how scarce these truly are, especially since many were melted down during the war effort, making survivors even more desirable. And just to add even more intrigue, there are whispers of a few error coins from 1938 off-center strikes, double dies, and even misaligned legends. These are almost impossible to find, but if you did stumble across one, values could rocket to over $450,000, putting this humble penny in the same category as some of the world's most legendary rarities. So here's the question for you. How do you know if your 1938 penny is potentially valuable? Start by checking the detail in the king's hair. The more strands you see, the higher the grade. Look at Britannia's shield and the folds in her gown. Sharpness here means serious money. And of course, any unusual doubling, off-centering, or bold red color should set off alarm bells in the best possible way. This is why the 1938 penny is not just an old coin, but a time capsule, a relic of pre-war Britain, and potentially a ticket to life-changing wealth. Imagine reaching into a coin jar and pulling out something that could pay for your retirement. That's the magic of numismatics, and that's why this coin deserves the first spot on our list. And remember, this is just the beginning. The next coin we're about to explore makes the 1938 penny look almost ordinary by comparison. So stay with me, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Our journey now takes us back even further, to the year 1919, a world still reeling from the devastation of World War I. Britain was trying to recover, industry was shifting, and coins like the humble 1 penny were being struck in massive numbers to support an economy in transition. At first glance, the 1919 1 penny might look like nothing more than another old piece of bronze, featuring King George V on the obverse with his stern royal profile, and the classic Britannia seated, with her shield and trident on the reverse. But don't let its common look fool you, because hidden within the 1919 series are some of the most astonishing rarities in the entire British penny family. In fine condition, like the coin we're focusing on, you'll notice where across the king's beard and crown, with much of Britannia's gown smoothed down. Collectors often consider this a modest grade, but even here, the value can range from $75 to $200 depending on overall detail and color. And while that might not sound like much, yet, the real shock comes when you consider the unique varieties and minting oddities that make some 1919 pennies worth jaw-dropping sums. You see, in 1919, not all pennies were struck at the Royal Mint in London. Some were produced at branch mints in Calcutta and Bombay, India, to keep up with demand. These coins can often be identified by tiny mint marks, and certain variations are far scarcer than others. A 1919 penny with the distinctive KN mint mark for the King's Norton Metal Company is an incredible find, and collectors will happily pay tens of thousands to own one in higher grades. That alone takes this humble coin from pocket change to treasure chest. Now, let's talk about condition. In extremely fine condition, where nearly every strand of the king's beard is visible, and Britannia's trident still shows crisp lines, values jump significantly, often reaching $8,000 to $12,000. But the real magic is in uncirculated examples, especially with full red or red-brown luster. Those coins can soar to breathtaking heights. Imagine a gleaming 1919 penny touched by circulation, blazing with original mint shine. Auction records have seen these climb past $250,000, with some varieties pushing into the $400,000 range. That's right, a coin most people would pass over without a second glance could secretly be worth more than a luxury home. And here's where it gets even wilder. Certain 1919 pennies show spectacular minting errors, double strikes, off-center legends, and even a few die cracks that run dramatically across the coin have been documented. These rare oddities turn an already valuable coin into something absolutely priceless. An error coin in pristine, uncirculated condition could shatter records, bringing over $500,000 or more in today's market. Just think about that $500,000 for a single bronze penny. It's almost unbelievable, yet it has happened time and time again when determined collectors battle over these rarities. So, how do you know if you've got a potentially valuable 1919 penny? Start by looking closely at the king's profile. The more detail you see in his mustache, beard, and crown, the better. Flip the coin and study Britannia's shield. Sharpness here is crucial. And most importantly, check for mint marks below the date. A KN or H mark could instantly transform your coin into a life-changing discovery. The 1919 1 penny is not just an old copper coin. It's a survivor of post-war Britain, a coin that tells a story of resilience, history, and unexpected fortune. And who knows, that penny sitting in a forgotten box in your attic might just be your ticket to an unbelievable payday. Now, we journey to 1927, a year that quietly marked an incredible chapter in British coinage. The 1927 penny might look ordinary at first, bronze, well-worn, carrying King George V's familiar portrait on one side, and Britannia seated strong and steady on the other. But here's the thing most people don't know. 1927 was no ordinary year for the British penny. This is the year of one of the most famous and most valuable proof issues in all of British numismatics. And that makes this date absolutely legendary. Let's start with the example in fine condition, the one we're looking at today. In this grade, the king's beard and hair are softened with wear, and Britannia's gown and shield have lost some sharpness. Still, collectors are eager for this date, and even in fine condition, values usually sit around $100 to $300 depending on color and strike. That's already impressive for a coin nearly a century old. But things get much more interesting the higher up the scale you climb. In extremely fine, or about uncirculated condition, the 1927 penny can leap to $5,000, $8,000, even $12,000, especially if it's got strong eye appeal. But the real story here, and the reason this coin is so famous, is the proof issue of 1927. That year, the Royal Mint struck a very limited number of specially prepared sets, known as the 1927 proof sets, to mark a new design for the smaller silver coins and to refresh Britain's coinage. Included in those sets was a proof penny, struck with polished dies and on specially selected blanks. The result was a coin with mirror-like fields and razor-sharp detail that was never meant for circulation. Those proof 1927 pennies are some of the most beautiful ever struck, and collectors go absolutely wild for them. Even a circulated proof, which is rare because most were carefully preserved, can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. High-grade examples with rich, deep toning can command between $50,000 and $120,000. And here's where the shock factor explodes. Flawless, pristine proof pennies from 1927, preserved as though they were struck yesterday, have crossed into the $300,000 to $450,000 range at auction. Yes, a single penny worth nearly $500,000. That's not just pocket change, that's life-changing money. But the surprises don't stop there. A few 1927 pennies show rare die varieties, slightly misaligned letters, doubling in the king's portrait, or faint cracks across Britannia's shield. These error coins can easily double or triple the already sky-high prices. Imagine a collector spotting one of these errors in a coin that's been tucked away for decades. That's the kind of story that makes headlines in the numismatic world.so. How do you know if you might have a valuable 1927 penny? Start by looking at the finish. If your coin has a mirror-like surface and unusually sharp detail, you might be staring at a proof example, and that's where fortunes are made. Even in circulation grades, check the sharpness of the beard, the mustache, and Britannia's trident. Strong detail means stronger value. And if you're lucky enough to notice doubling in the lettering or an unusual shine, don't pass it off lightly. You could be holding a six-figure rarity. The 1927 penny is not just another old British coin. It's a key to one of the most famous proof issues of the 20th century, a piece of artistry, and potentially a treasure worth more than many people's entire retirement accounts. It's coins like this that remind us why we search, why we check every drawer, every old jar, and every box in the attic. And here's the best part. The journey doesn't stop here, because the next coin in our list has a backstory so unbelievable, and a value so staggering, that it makes the 1927 penny look almost tame. Stay with me, and make sure you're subscribed, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. Next up, we leap into the middle of the 20th century, to 1945, a year forever etched into history as the year World War II finally came to an end. Britain was battered, exhausted, but victorious, and coins struck in this period carry an emotional weight unlike any other. The 1945 one penny of King George VI is one of those coins that look so ordinary, so simple, that most people would never give it a second glance. But what if I told you this little penny could secretly be one of the most valuable coins in the entire series? Let's start with the example we have here, a fine condition 1945 penny. In this grade, King George VI's portrait is still visible, though the fine hair detail is worn smooth. Britannia on the reverse is still bold, with her shield and trident visible, but you'll notice a lot of flattening across the folds of her gown and the tips of the trident. In this condition, collectors will usually pay around $80 to $150. Which is already not bad for a coin many would assume is worthless. But trust me, this is just the beginning. You see, the real story of the 1945 penny is one of survival and extreme rarity. The Royal Mint struck a large mintage of pennies dated 1945. But here's the twist. most of them were never released into circulation. Instead, they were melted down in preparation for the new designs coming after the war. That means genuine. Surviving 1945 pennies, especially in higher grades, are much scarcer than people realize. And scarcity is exactly what collectors love. Now, let's talk about value. In extremely fine condition, where the king's hair is sharp and Britannia's shield shows every detail, prices leap into the thousands. $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000 for a top example. But it doesn't stop there. In brilliant uncirculated condition, the kind of coin that still shines with fiery red luster as though it just left the mint, the 1945 penny becomes a showstopper. At auction, these gems have been known to smash estimates, reaching $200,000, $300,000, and in a few cases, over $400,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin that most people would mistake for pocket change. And then there are the rarer coins. Because wartime minting was rushed and conditions were tough, a small number of 1945 pennies show striking anomalies, double dates, off-center strikes, and weak lettering caused by worn dies. These rare mistakes are a collector's dream. If you were lucky enough to find one in top condition, you'd be looking at values soaring well past $450,000. Just let that sink in. A single bronze penny that could outprice luxury sports cars. And even some American rare gold coins. So, how can you tell if you've got a valuable 1945 penny? First, check the condition. More detail means more value. Second, look carefully for strong color. Red or red-brown luster is a huge bonus. And finally, study the date and the lettering for signs of doubling or misalignment. Even the smallest error could transform your coin into a life-changing discovery. The 1945 one penny isn't just another old coin. It's a survivor of Britain's toughest years, a relic of a world at war, and a coin so scarce and high grades that it can command mind-blowing prices. Imagine the thrill of pulling one out of a coin jar, realizing you've just uncovered a $500,000 treasure. That's what makes this coin legendary. And let me tell you, if this one shocked you, the next coin on our list is going to crank that shock factor even higher. It's a coin that takes rarity to an entirely new level. So don't go anywhere, and make sure you've subscribed, because trust me, the next reveal is going to blow you away. Next up, we leap into the middle of the 20th century, to 1945. A year forever etched into history as the year World War II finally came to an end. Britain was battered, exhausted, but victorious, and coins struck in this period carry an emotional weight unlike any other. The 1945 one penny of King George VI is one of those coins that look so ordinary, so simple, that most people would never give it a second glance. But what if I told you this little penny could secretly be one of the most valuable coins in the entire series? Let's start with the example we have here, a fine condition 1945 penny. In this grade, King George VI's portrait is still visible, though the fine hair detail is worn smooth. Britannia on the reverse is still bold, with her shield and trident visible, but you'll notice a lot of flattening across the folds of her gown and the tips of the trident. In this condition, collectors will usually pay around $80 to $150, which is already not bad for a coin many would assume is worthless. But trust me, this is just the beginning. You see, the real story of the 1945 penny is one of survival and extreme rarity. The Royal Mint struck a large mintage of pennies dated 1945. But here's the twist. Most of them were never released into circulation. Instead, they were melted down in preparation for the new designs coming after the war. That means genuine. Surviving 1945 pennies, especially in higher grades, are much scarcer than people realize. And scarcity is exactly what collectors love. Now, let's talk about value. In extremely fine condition, where the king's hair is sharp and Britannia's shield shows every detail, prices leap into the thousands. $10,000, $15,000, even $20,000 for a top example. But it doesn't stop there. In brilliant uncirculated condition, the kind of coin that still shines with fiery red luster as though it just left the mint. The 1945 penny becomes a showstopper. At auction, these gems have been known to smash estimates, reaching $200,000, $300,000, and in a few cases, over $400,000. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin that most people would mistake for pocket change. And then there are the error coins. Because wartime minting was rushed and conditions were tough, a small number of 1945 pennies show striking anomalies, double dates, off-center strikes, and weak lettering caused by worn dies. These rare mistakes are a collector's dream. If you were lucky enough to find one in top condition, you'd be looking at values soaring well past $450,000. Just let that sink in. A single bronze penny that could outprice luxury sports cars. And even some American rare gold coins. So, how can you tell if you've got a valuable 1945 penny? First, check the condition. More detail means more value. Second, look carefully for strong color. Red or red-brown luster is a huge bonus. And finally, study the date and the lettering for signs of doubling or misalignment. Even the smallest error could transform your coin into a life-changing discovery. The 1945 one penny isn't just another old coin. It's a survivor of Britain's toughest years, a relic of a world at war, and a coin so scarce and high grades that it can command mind-blowing prices. Imagine the thrill of pulling one out of a coin jar, realizing you've just uncovered a $500,000 treasure. That's what makes this coin legendary. And let me tell you, if this one shocked you, the next coin on our list is going to crank that shock factor even higher. It's a coin that takes rarity to an entirely new level. So don't go anywhere, and make sure you've subscribed, because trust me, the next reveal is going to blow you away. Now, we move back to the year 1916. Right in the heart of World War I, Britain was stretched to its limits. The war effort was consuming every ounce of metal and manpower. And yet, coins still had to be struck to keep the economy functioning. Among them was the humble one penny of King George V. On the surface, it looks like just another old bronze coin, the king's portrait on one side, Britannia standing proud on the other. But the year 1916 is anything but ordinary, and this penny has shocked collectors with values that climb higher and higher, especially when unusual features like color or minting varieties come into play. Let's start with the example we're focusing on, a 1916 penny in fine condition, showing a distinct black shade. Over the years, pennies from this era often tone deeply due to their bronze alloy and the way they were stored, producing dark, almost jet black surfaces. Collectors actually love this kind of toning, especially when the detail is still clear. In fine condition, where you can still make out the king's facial features and most of Britannia's shield and trident, values can range from $120 to $250. But trust me, that's only the beginning. Here's where the story gets truly fascinating. During 1916, not all pennies were struck in London. To meet demand, production was contracted out to private mints, like the Heaton Mint in Birmingham. These coins bear a small H mint mark below the date, and those are the ones that collectors chase relentlessly. A regular 1916 penny might bring a few $100s, but a 1916 H in higher grades can rocket into the tens of thousands. And when you start looking at uncirculated examples, the values become staggering. In extremely fine condition, a 1916 penny with rich, even toning can soar into the $7,000 to $15,000 range. Step up into brilliant uncirculated with blazing original luster, and you're suddenly talking about $200,000, $300,000, even $350,000 depending on the exact variety and quality. But here's the real kicker. Some ultra-rare proof-like strikes and exceptional mint examples have shocked the auction world, pushing close to $450,000. Yes, nearly $500,000 for what started life as a simple bronze penny. And then there are the legendary error coins. Imagine a 1916 penny struck slightly off-center, or with doubling in the lettering of George's V. A handful of these have surfaced, and collectors will pay staggering premiums for them. An error 1916 penny in top grade could easily smash into the $500,000 range. The kind of life-changing money that seems impossible for a coin most people overlook. So, how can you spot if your 1916 penny might be worth a fortune? First, check under the date for a tiny H. If it's there, you're already in rare territory. Second, study the surfaces. A natural black or dark chocolate toning is highly desirable, especially if the detail remains sharp. And third, look for sharpness in Britannia's shield and the king's beard. Those are the key high points collectors examine. Any doubling or unusual features should have you running straight to an expert, because you might just have a six-figure treasure in your hands. The 1916 penny isn't just an old coin. It's a relic of wartime Britain, a symbol of resilience in one of the darkest years of history, and, for those lucky enough to own the right example, a coin that could literally change their lives forever. Imagine finding a black-shaded 1916 penny in a dusty jar, realizing it could be worth more than your retirement savings. That's the magic, and that's why this coin holds a place of honor in our list. And if you think that's incredible, just wait. Because the next coin we're about to uncover has a story so rare, and a value so jaw-dropping, it's going to take this shock factor to the next level. Stick with me, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe because the next reveal is one you absolutely do not want to miss. Now, we turn to 1935, the year that marked the silver jubilee of King George V. 25 years on the throne. Britain was in the midst of change, recovering from the Great Depression, with industries evolving and the monarchy entering a new era of celebration. Among the coins struck that year was the humble 1 penny, a bronze coin featuring George V's regal profile on the obverse and the classic seated Britannia on the reverse. Most people see it as just another common penny, but for collectors, the 1935 issue hides surprises that can make your jaw drop. Let's start with the example we have in fine condition. Here, the king's portrait is worn, with much of the detail in his mustache and beard softened. Britannia still stands proud, but her gown and trident have flattened with circulation. Even in this modest grade, the coin can fetch $75 to $200, depending on eye appeal. Not bad for a coin nearly 90 years old, but the real shock comes when you climb the ladder of condition. In extremely fine condition, where every line of the king's beard is crisp and Britannia's shield shows its full pattern, prices climb rapidly, soaring into the $5,000 to $12,000 range. That's the cost of a used car for a single penny. And if you're lucky enough to stumble upon a brilliant uncirculated example with its original blazing red or red-brown luster, that's when things explode. These coins are so scarce and so desired that collectors will go to extraordinary lengths to own one. Auction records have shown them selling for over $200,000, with some stunning examples approaching $300,000. And just when you think that's the peak, enter the world of rarities and errors. You see, 1935 is famous for certain varieties that keep collectors hunting. Some pennies show doubling on the date or letters in Brit, a striking error that dramatically raises the value. A few even exhibit off-center strikes, where the design is shifted, giving the coin a bizarre and unforgettable look. When these rare errors appear, especially in high grades, the hammer price can shatter expectations, sometimes blasting past $450,000. Imagine a coin that most people wouldn't glance at twice turning out to be worth nearly $500,000. So, how do you spot if your 1935 penny could be one of these life-changing finds? First, check the sharpness in George V's facial features and mustache. The more detail, the better. Second, examine Britannia's shield and the folds in her robe. If they're crisp, your coin is climbing the value ladder fast. And finally, look very carefully at the date and lettering. Any doubling, cracks, or unusual spacing could mean you're holding one of the great rarities of British numismatics. The 1935 penny is more than just a coin. It's a piece of Jubilee history, a token from an empire at its height, and for some lucky collectors, a ticket to unimaginable fortune. Think about it, a bronze penny, The kind that millions once jingled in their pockets, today carrying values that could rival the price of a house. That's the thrill, the mystery, and the magic of coin collecting. And trust me when I say if you thought this was shocking, you haven't seen anything yet. The next coin on our list has a story so unique and a value so staggering that it makes the 1935 penny look almost ordinary. So stay with me, and don't forget to subscribe, because what's coming up next will leave you absolutely stunned. Next, we land in 1946, the first full year after the end of World War II. Britain was scarred, rationing was still in place, and rebuilding the nation was the order of the day. Yet, through it all, the Royal Mint continued to strike the bronze penny, carrying the proud portrait of King George VI on the obverse and the timeless image of Britannia on the reverse. At a glance, the 1946 penny looks like just another well-used coin from the mid-20th century. But hidden within this date are values that have stunned collectors again and again. The example we're looking at today is in extra fine condition, and that already puts it in the spotlight. In this grade, the king's hair detail is sharp, his ear and jawline crisp, and Britannia's gown, shield, and trident show remarkable definition. There's some light wear, but overall, the coin still has a strong presence. Even here, collectors will pay between $250 and $600 for the right piece. That's a far cry from pocket change, but trust me, this coin can climb far higher. Here's why. The 1946 penny is scarcer than most people realize. Production had slowed in the mid-1940s, and many of the coins struck were quickly worn down in circulation during the harsh post-war years. Finding one today in such high grade is no small feat. And as always, condition is king. In about uncirculated condition, values can surge into the thousands, $8,000, $10,000, sometimes $15,000 for especially sharp examples. But here's where the shock really hits. Brilliant uncirculated 1946 pennies, with blazing original red luster, are incredibly rare. These coins look as though they were just struck yesterday, and collectors will bid fiercely to add them to their cabinets. Prices for these gems have been known to surpass $150,000, and in certain cases, exceed $250,000. That's the kind of money that turns a humble penny into a life-changing discovery. And just when you think it can't get any better, let's talk errors. The 1946 penny is known for some spectacular mistakes. A small number of coins show doubled lettering in George's VI. Others have weak strikes from worn dies, and there are even reports of misaligned or off-center strikes. These rare anomalies transform the coin from valuable to priceless. An uncirculated 1946 penny with a dramatic error could easily hit the $400,000 to $500,000 range at auction. Imagine the shock of pulling one out of an old family coin tin and realizing you're holding $500,000 in your hand. So, how do you know if your 1946 penny is something special? First, check the detail in George VI's hair and ear. Sharp lines here mean higher grade. Next, study Britannia's trident and the waves at her feet. The clearer they are, the more valuable your coin. Finally, tilt the coin in the light. If you see that original red flash of mint brilliance, you might just have a rarity worth a small fortune. The 1946 penny is far more than just a post-war coin. It's a symbol of resilience, struck in a year when Britain was trying to stand tall again. And for collectors, it's a piece of history that can carry staggering values in the right condition. Think about it, a penny that once bought a newspaper could today buy you a house. That's the magic of numismatics, and it's why this coin earns its spot among the most exciting finds of the George VI era. And let me tell you, as shocking as this was, the next coin we're about to reveal raises the stakes even higher. If you thought $500,000 for a penny was unbelievable, you won't want to miss what's coming next. So stick with me, and don't forget to subscribe, because the next reveal is going to blow you away.